Hello everyone, my name is Brynn Powers and this is my human rights presentation. So what are human rights? Many people have heard of them but do not know an exact definition. A human right is defined as a right that is believed to belong justifiably to every person. Some rights include the right to own property, the right to marriage, and the right to work. Section 1, Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. For my project, I chose to visit the KSU Museum of History and Holocaust Education. The museum is one division within the Kennesaw State University Department of Museums, Archives, and Rare Books, which was founded in 2010. It is located just a few minutes outside of Kennesaw State main campus. I picked this option because of my love for history. Whenever I get a chance to go to an exhibit, city, or museum to learn more about a certain time period, I always take it. During Hitler's dictatorship, he targeted many groups of people. The most commonly known is the Jews, but he also discriminated gypsies, homosexuals, people with mental and physical disabilities, Jehovah's Witnesses, artists, and other ethnic groups such as the Slavs. These particular individuals were singled out because they were perceived as a threat to the master race of the Nazis and were seen as unclean and dirty. The mistreatment of the Jews in particular began when the Nazis created ghettos for them to live in. These communities restricted their cultural and economic lives and removed them from society. Shortly after this, Jews were beginning to be sent to concentration camps all across Europe. Many individuals died from disease, starvation, violence from guards, and gas chambers. By the end of the war, around 11 million people total had been killed, with 6 million being Jews. This astronomical number consisted around of 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population and 40% of the world's. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the UDHR, is a milestone document in the history of human rights. It was adopted on December 10, 1948 by the United Nations. The initiative to create such a document was led by Eleanor Roosevelt. Documents such as the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, the French Declaration on the Rights of Man and Citizen, and the U.S. Constitution of Bill of Rights are all written precursors to the UDHR. Hitler and the Nazis went against some of the most basic human rights. These include the right to not be a slave, the right to not be tortured, the right that no one will be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile, and the list goes on. The global responses to the events of the Holocaust differ from each country. Denmark and Sweden tried to help save the Jews by smuggling them across borders. China also accepted 25,000 Jewish refugees. But the US and Great Britain limited Jewish immigration because of existing laws in place. The US declined to collaborate with Sweden in a plan to rescue Jews and have some relocate in Alaska. Many South American countries forced any ship containing Jewish refugees to return to Europe. The French government willingly turned over many Jews to the Nazis. I really enjoyed visiting the museum and had many favorite parts. One of these was a wall with scrolls in it. Each scroll had a promise that you will do something to better your community and the treatment of others. One said, "I will treat all people with respect." Another wrote, "I will thank the people who make a difference in my life." Even though these quotes align with my personal morals and values, this part made me truly think about consciously and actively implementing these practices into my daily life. Another part was at the entrance, there was a beautiful display of colored butterflies. This was a sweet way to show remembrance for the many people in the Holocaust. I also love the recreation of a 1940s living room. It was so cool that they had an old radio playing recordings that you might have heard during that time period. So, you might be thinking, how does this all relate to me today? Well, even though it might not be as known, there are many human rights violated every single day in our current era. Modern discrimination against groups is becoming more open in the news, such as Black Lives Matter, religious discrimination, women's rights, and so forth. But just because it is a story happening across the country or even the world, it does not mean you cannot have a say in acting against it. I love these two quotes that are in the middle of the museum. They talk about how being silent and being a bystander is just as wrong as committing the act itself. You have a voice, and you can fight for those who might not have one. In your everyday life, you might see someone being bullied in class or a person being mistreated in a public place. You can stand up for them because even that small difference can make a change in someone's life and give them hope. Eleanor Roosevelt herself said, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small they cannot be seen on any maps of the world." Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you learned something new that will benefit your understanding of human rights.